Hey everybody, this is Jason Swanson, and lately I've been playing around with some iPad apps. My initial interest was just to simplify my setup, and especially when I'm traveling, if I'm flying, I don't want to have to bring all my pedals. I'd rather plug in, maybe one little thing and bring an iPad or my phone and be able to be able to do EQ, compression, and reverb, and maybe some other things. So Amplitube recently came out with their Amplitube Acoustic. They also have an interface, and I'm not going to be using that. Today I'm going to be using the Scarlett 2i2 interface, which uses a series of connectors and works pretty well. It's got a camera connection kit and a bunch of other things set up so that I can work with the iPad. And the sound of the Focusrite is pretty great. So I'm going to go through on my Taylor 310, and it has a Fishman pickup that it came out with back in the day, like 15 years ago. And also it has a Lyric, LR Baggs Lyric mic that I'm also going to demonstrate. All right, so first, here is the dry sound with no amp or anything. Okay, good clean sound. I'm going to actually first turn the amp on because we're going to keep that on. We're going to keep that on with everything we do. I'm using EQ to boost the bass and take back a little bit of the treble. So there you go. I'm going to wait to add any reverb. So one thing I really like here is the compressor. It's very simple. It's very easy to use, and it has a really nice gain reduction meter that reminds me of my compressor made by Aphex. I forget what the name was, but it was a great compressor. I don't know what the other settings are in this compressor as far as attack, ratio, release goes, but it's very easy to use and it's very helpful. This parametric EQ is great. There's not a lot of detail in here. Well, sometimes when you turn the knobs on, you get more detail down there. But this parametric EQ, for example, makes it pretty easy to seek and destroy. So I really like that. There's also a graphic EQ, similar to the graphic EQ right here. But I was just really glad to see the 2-band parametric EQ on here. Body modeler is interesting. I'm not a big fan of the body modeler, honestly. I mean, on my guitar. I think what you have to do is play around with it for a little while. I am playing a dreadnought, and then the source is a dreadnought. Let's see. Yeah, that's not a bad sound. Maybe if I just mix it in a little bit here. All right, other effects in here that I messed around with. I'm mostly going to talk about what I would be using this for personally instead of going through letting this be extremely extensive. But I played with the 12-string. It might be useful for some things, like if I'm strumming here. Let me turn it up a little bit. If the song calls for it, I think that would work, but I'm not a huge fan of that. Bass maker is kind of cool. What I wish it would do, I wish it would do a polyphonic. I would love to find a pedal that did on the iPad, or a plugin that did this polyphonic feature with the Super Octave, which is super cool. Anyways, this is a decent little octaver. It seems to track pretty well, seems to work pretty well. It's not something you want to use all the time, but it is pretty cool. And so those are the main effects that it comes with. It's not a ton of effects. There's not a ton of effect slots, really. I think you get 6 total, because you can add effects after. I think this is after the amplifier. So 6 normal effects, and there's also a feedback killer, which I'm not really going to use here, but it seems great. I'm not using it here because there's no real feedback to kill in this room, but it seems like a great little device. Really, what this seems to be competing with is something like, it's trying to be like a LR Baggs Venue DI, but in your iPad, and also it has a lot more going on. Whoa, turn that off. I even have another compressor here. I know, maybe that's too much compression, but here we go. We can put some reverb on there. So there's flanger, delay, chorus. Not a bad sounding chorus. I'm not a big user of chorus. So these, overall, the amplifier, what the amplifier adds to it feels nice. It's subtle. It's not too extreme or anything. I really like how easy it is to use the compressor and the parametric EQ. For me, that is the biggest appeal to Amplitube Acoustic. I'd love to use the actual Amplitube Acoustic interface sometime and try that out too, which I may do in the future. I'm going to now switch guitars. I'm going to mute this. Not switch guitars, I'm going to switch pickups. I'm going to mute that. I'm going to switch presets. I'm going to I have a different plug-in for my LR Baggs Lyric. There we go. Let's unmute that. All right, so here's how my Lyric sounds with nothing on it except for a little bit of EQ and, well, let's see if so that's nothing on it. That might be a little quiet, but here's a little bit, tiny bit of EQ going on here. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that sound. It's very natural. It has the sound of a microphone, but it needs a lot of help in the mid-range. So I was able to go on here. Well, I'm going to turn this compressor on even. Try and keep it subtle. And this parametric EQ really does come in handy. For example, I don't know if you're familiar. For those of you not familiar with searching and destroying, here's how you would do it on a parametric EQ. You're a little bit limited because you can't change the bandwidth, but here we go. So I turned up the level. Woo! Anyways, that's not very good, right? Now we're going to sweep the frequency spectrum. And for when something stands out, that really stands out. All right, that's what I'm going to cut. So that's what I did here, here, and here. And see how similar it is? This one I actually boosted a little bit. Let's cut that even more. Add this one. It still has a little bit of a nasally mic sound, but it's kind of nice, and you could definitely work on that a lot more. just take out the mids here. Let's see how that sounds. All right, I really like the way that's sounding. Let's turn some reverb on. Let me turn this down a little bit more right there. Let's see. So there you go. There are other features in here that I didn't really go to, such as another solid state amp model and a tube amp model. So seems to be a good amount of stuff here for $10, and it seems to be very. It's built for acoustic, so that means I think that is a nice feature, as opposed to using some of these other programs that may not have the quick ease of use that this one does. Especially, I think a lot of people could really find benefit from this feedback killer, and many other features built in. I think there's a tuner, I guess. There's a looper or maybe a recorder of some kind. So my review is that my conclusion is that I'm pretty happy with it. I'm getting really good sounds. I find the two effects that I care about the most, the parametric EQ and the compressor, to be very quick, straightforward, as with the feedback killer, which seems great. I'm sure it is great. It looks like it would work very well. So yeah, I would say definitely check this out if you get a iPad guitar interface or iOS interface of some kind. All right, take it easy.